Ladies and gentlemen, so last video we went into the lore of modern warfare, and today we are going to go into the lore of the Black Ops uh six sexually whatever the fuck you want to call it. uh the Black Ops franchise. Let's just call it like that, I guess. I have no clue what to fucking call it, but yep, we're just gonna learn the lore of Black Ops. Let's get into it.
The story of Black Ops really starts as far back as Call of Duty World at War, where we're introduced to two main characters that are pretty important later on. In World at War, you play as Dmitry
Okay.
Petrenko, whose story begins in the iconic Red Square in Stalingrad, which was the name of a Russian city. You witness some Nazis slaughtering your comrades as you play dead and appear to be the only survivor left. Except, hey, you're not the only one. This guy named Viktor Reznov is alive too, and you guys become best buddies, fighting the
Okay.
Nazis and more or less winning the Second World War.
Wait a minute.
Preventing the Russian
Isn't Reznov the dude in BO1 that when you're in like the gulag or whatever, he helps you get out? I'm pretty sure that's that guy.
flag among the ashes of Berlin in April of 1945. Then in October of the same year, we see in Black Ops 1 a continuation of Dmitry and Reznov's story, where we learn that the Red Square massacre ultimately happened as a result of horrible leadership on the part of these two goobers, Nikita Dragovich and Lev Kravchenko. So Reznov does not trust or like them as such, but him and Dmitry are tasked with tracking down and capturing this evil scientist named Steiner, one of Hitler's best pals. See, Steiner's developing this crazy toxic gas called Nova 6, and it's just the perfect tool for committing war crimes. So they track him down, but then Dragovich is like, maybe we can see how the gas works. And Steiner was like, I could actually show you right now. So Dragovich
and then they kill the scientist
chambers and fucking test it out on them. We see from Reznov's
shit,
a horrible scene of Dmitry, again, the guy you play as in Call of Duty World at War, being gassed in front of him. So if that wasn't
no way,
is up next. But before he gets gassed, the British arrive. Not totally sure where they came from or how, but thanks, British people. So Reznov is very angry and plants a bomb on this ship, which was where some of the Nova gas was stored, and ship go boom. Later on, Reznov was captured and taken to the Russian prison in Vorkuta, where he was basically
there we go. Okay, this is what I remember.
Give out. Grim, right? It's here where we really get into the meat and potatoes of Black Ops. It's 1961. You play as Alex Mason, and you're in Cuba during the Bay of Pigs invasion to kill some bad guys and potentially assassinate Fidel Castro. You and your other CIA buddies, Frank Woods and Joseph Bowman, are here to assist. Ultimately, you fight through this first mission, kill what you assume to be Fidel Castro, and then you're
headshot
and captured. See, it turns out you killed someone who looked just like him, and now you're kinda screwed. Castro is just fine. Oh, and would you look at that? It's Dragovich and Kravchenko. Yes, the same.
Aw, snap.
And remember Vorkuta, the prison Reznov was taken to? Well, Fidel Castro didn't want Alex Mason, so he gave him to the Russians, and they just kind of sent him there so they could brainwash
the numbers, Mason. The number
spy that doesn't even know they're a spy. They basically train him like a dog with a bunch of numbers, and then eventually their plan was to use these numbers to activate him or have him assassinate JFK. But you see, it is here where you, Alex Mason, meet Reznov. He's looking a little sweaty, and while he buddies up to you, he also manages to sneak past guards and reprogram you during your brainwashing, so that you secretly also want to obliterate Steiner, Kravchenko, and Dragovich. But you don't learn that part right away, because you're too busy staging an uprising with Reznov, which culminates in this prison break and you jumping onto a train. Reznov is seemingly left for dead, and then you eventually make it to the US. Yay!
The Pentagon!
I mean, that brainwashing stuff probably didn't matter anyway. The next mission, we meet your adorable grumpy bald boss guy, Hudson, and you meet JFK as he's like, so you're gonna go kill Dragovich. But Mason starts seeing the numbers, and he's like,
the numbers,
I
Mason.
That, but I also kind of want to kill you, but that's for later, because then you go to Kazakhstan to go kill Dragovich and potentially Kravchenko. They're launching some rockets here, and this special agent that arrived before you, named Weaver, was messing around with the rockets, but ultimately got captured, and there goes his eyeball. Ultimately, the mission goes poorly.
That's crazy!
The bad guys escape. Not long after this mission, JFK is assassinated, and we get a time skip of 5 years. Mason is now really intent on killing his targets, because Reznov is just irresistibly charismatic from that time you spent with him back in the prison. But
yes, baby girl.
Really
also, real quick before we continue, this was streamed live on YouTube. So if you want to interact with me, interact with the stream, you know the place to find it out. Subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a live stream or video.
Many leads on the bad guys, so Woods and Mason are now just hanging out in Vietnam for recon, basically looking around for Soviet involvement. Around this time, also, as seen in Call of Duty Cold War, this dude named Russell Adler was on a mission to also be looking around for Russian involvement, and him and his boys ultimately found some Russian agents and finding evidence of a big bad guy called Perseus. Oh yeah, it's also probably important
Perseus,
America
okay.
stored nukes in Vietnam just in case they needed them. And so
what? Okay.
Stationed in Nam that just so happened to have a nuke, Adler and his team went to go escort it out as fast as they could because it seemed that Perseus knew about it and wanted it. Helicopter crashes.
Bye-bye.
Some amount of time later, Mason, Woods, and Bowman head over to a compound still in Vietnam where they could find some info on your boy Dragovich because he was back in the picture again. And
okay,
so Alex Mason runs into Reznov, who saves him from being stabbed. Apparently Reznov is here and also is a defector, at least so it would seem. They grab a file and learn a bunch of stuff about Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, and some guy named Dr. Daniel Clark. This was some dude that worked with Steiner and had involvement in the Nova 6 gas project. Hudson and Weaver head to Kowloon City in Hong Kong and find this guy because obviously he's pretty important. You interrogate him, try and escape with him, and then he gets shot and killed before you ultimately save yourselves. Cutting back to the main gang, Mason, Woods, and Bowman are still in Vietnam and get into some trouble while searching for Kravchenko. One helicopter crash later, somehow Reznov is here to once again save Mason, and the next thing you know it, you enter a tunnel with this guy, and you're just seeing Reznov everywhere.
Damn, he's just teleporting everywhere.
Escape, meeting back up with the gang to go retrieve some Nova 6 cargo in Laos. Then the bad guys show up and he's munching on an apple. Next thing you know it,
Munchy munch.
And Bowman are all captured, presumed dead by the CIA. Then you experience one of the most memorably horrifying scenes in the entire Black Ops series. Bowman is killed after refusing to play Russian roulette.
What?
Fuckers. I'm gonna make them pay.
You! No talk. Play!
What's the plan?
You can't kill me! You shoot, GI, you shoot!
Damn.
Mason and Woods go ahead and pull some badass action hero shit. They then
holy fuck!
head into a facility. Mason is seeing Reznov again, and hey.
Dude, I swear, Reznov, he's everywhere, dude. He's saving, popping up. You guys, I have a theory on that. Okay. You see, he's a shapeshifter. Okay, that's why he's able to go everywhere. He just shapeshifts. He let them capture him. That's the whole thing. He let them capture him. That's the only reason they got him. That's the only reason. Okay, that's it.
Helicopter their way out, head into a facility. Mason is seeing Reznov again, and hey, it's Kravchenko.
Hello there.
Woods is like, and
not today.
him, but then they both fall out a window and blow up. Cool. So Mason and Reznov head to this place called Rebirth Island, which according to a mission Hudson went on previously, is where they could find Steiner.
Oh my god, is it the same Rebirth Island as in Warzone? Yes.
Hudson and Weaver move in as well, and then we get this great reveal.
And I will have my revenge!
We saw the report, Mason. Victor Reznov did not kill Friedrich Steiner. Hudson saw what happened.
My name is Victor Reznov, and I will have my revenge! Mason, no!
So yeah, if it wasn't obvious enough, Reznov hasn't just conveniently been popping up in weird places. Mason's been straight up hallucinating this the whole time. And I don't know if it's like PTSD or schizophrenia, but we don't really have time to figure that out.
Wait, so Reznov's never been there?
Number sequences over the radio or the TV that are going to activate sleeper agents all around the world. And Mason is interrogated by Hudson to figure out what to do. And this is where a meme was forged.
So cute and
Who are you people?
just look at your little face.
What the fuck?
Sorry. Did you sleep okay?
Fuck you.
What time is it?
Kiss my ass.
Mason finally remembers.
Okay.
And it turns out everything leads back to this random ass ship called the Rizalka in Cuba. It's the source of the numbers broadcast, apparently. So Hudson puts on his
Okay.
sunglasses and they're off to head over to Cuba.
Where? Cuba.
So they get
Let's
the
go!
fuck out of it, but it turns out the numbers broadcast is in a base underwater. So they head there, and at long last, we get the final showdown between Mason and Dragovich.
Okay.
Turn me against my own. Like I'm making kill my own president. Pride.
See, now,
Hold on. So did Mason kill MLK? No, MLK? The fuck? No. JFK? What the fuck?
See, now, while the threat has been eliminated, it's revealed at the very end of Black Ops 1 that the person who assassinated JFK was actually Mason. Remember that
Damn!
mission where you briefly meet JFK and hallucinate shooting him? Well, it just so happens that that mission took place on November 10th, just 12 days before the actual JFK bit the dust.
Damn.
Essentially, Call of Duty's fictionalized headcanon is that JFK wasn't killed by some crazed man named Lee Harvey Oswald. No, he was killed by a CIA agent that was brainwashed by Russian and German bad guys. Nothing like using the deaths of
Oh,
real
that's
political
crazy.
figures to push a narrative that makes the US look better than how they looked when the actual event took place. We call this little oopsie propaganda. Moving on, you might be wondering, hey, what happened to our boy Frank Woods? Well, after
Yeah.
him and Kravchenko blew up, they actually didn't, because they were pretty much fine, and Kravchenko imprisoned Woods in Hanoi in Vietnam. Ultimately, our boy
All right.
escaped a couple months later because Woods has plot armor thicker than
Woods
a
is
mackerel,
that just
but they
Woods is
haven't
just
been
that fucking guy. That's what he
and
is.
with that, we conclude the story of Black Ops 1 and move into Black Ops 5, or in other words, Cold War. And let me tell you,
Okay.
it's 1981. You're Alex Mason again.
Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? Okay. So this is by storyline order. Storyline order. And not game order, which is great. I like it better like that. All right, let's get back to
Hanging out with Russell Adler, someone who we're going to see a whole lot of from here on out. You and Adler are in a bar in Amsterdam, Netherlands, when an informant walks up and tells you that he's bought you some time to go after a presumed target. So you and Adler move
Okay.
forward, sneaking into an alleyway where, hey, would you know it, Frank Woods is waiting
Oh
for
my
you with
God,
some
it's
sweet
Woods!
guns. You three head over into an occupied residence, and... So as it turns out, you're focusing on two targets, Arash Kadivar and Kasim Javadi. You've reason
Alrighty.
to believe that Javadi is here, and he is. So you start chasing after him, and why is he so fast? Once you catch
Gotta
up,
go
you
fast!
question him and find out that Arash Kadivar is going to be at an airfield in Turkey. After learning this
Alright.
information, the next mission has the trio heading up to said airstrip and witnessing Kadivar shoot some of his own men before
You
they try and take off in a
can't-
cargo plane. You stop the plane, end up in a bit of a crash, and then
Hold
his own
on.
men before
You're
they try and
scoped
take off
at
in a
him.
car- to
You're
said airstrip,
scoped
and
down.
witnessing
Why
Kadivar
couldn't you
shoot
just
some of
fucking
his own
kill
men before
him?
they try and take off in a cargo plane. You stop the plane, end up in a bit of a crash, and then question the dude before Adler left clicks on his head. From there,
Boom.
you and the boys end up in an office talking to government officials before Ronald Reagan shows up and
Ronald
explains that
Reagan.
everything you're doing, illegal or not, is perfectly justified because it's for the free men and women of our world. And
It's
after
for
that,
the
also,
great
for some reason,
American
Mason is just
people.
allowed to be here, despite the fact that he literally killed JFK in the Black Ops canon. But we're just gonna ignore that because now your character comes into play, not Alex Mason.
Maybe in the canon they still think it's Lee Harvey Oswald and he was ironically there. But Mason was the one that really killed him. They think it's yeah, whatever.
No. In Cold War, throughout most of the game, you actually play as a character named Bell. Where did you come from? You'll find that out in due time. You start by hanging out at this cool warehouse where you meet your main crew, Adler,
Okay.
Park, Sims, and Lazar. Back in Chapter 2, I briefly mentioned how Adler in Vietnam ended up finding some kind of Russian involvement involving a man named Perseus. And that's really what we focus on in Cold War. This guy's linked to a bunch of total nuclear disasters, so while investigating Perseus like your Charlie Day, your team helps you conclude that Anton Volkov Volkov is your next lead, and this guy is a
All right.
Russian mob boss operating out of Berlin. So with a kill or capture
My
order for
boss!
Volkov and a mission to intercept one of his couriers, Franz Kraus, you head into Berlin to meet with a CIA informant who's going to be right in the area of where Kraus is supposed to meet Volkov.
Okay.
You sneak into the city with Adler through the underground railroad system and meet the informant, but as it turns out, when Kraus arrives, not long after, someone tells him that he's not safe and that he's being set up. So when the
He's
Berlin
being
police
set
show
up.
you gotta skedaddle on out and find another way. You sneak into
Skedaddle,
Kraus' home to find
skedaddle.
some evidence, ideally not getting discovered like I did, and then you sneak into
Okay.
his creepy red room, find some pictures, one being of a nuke, plant a little tracker, and then promptly find that informant from earlier all tied up before Kraus
What?
completely sneaks up behind you and knocks you out. You wake up being
No.
tied up in front of Volkov in some warehouse. Things aren't looking too good, but probably because of that tracker you planted, all is well since your team saves you just in the nick of time. From
In
there, you make the
time,
decision to
okay.
either kill or capture Volkov. So as it turns out, the evidence you gain from the mission leads you right to the coordinates of an unpopulated area of Ukraine, which at the time was Russian controlled because it was of course in the USSR. This unpopulated area
course.
turns out to be a gigantic facility, and so Bell and Woods head in to investigate while Mason and Adler stand by for extraction once you guys have learned what you can about the secret fortress. And god damn, I thought to myself as I was trying to look at it before my game crashed. Let's try that again. So you ambush these
it
totally
crashed.
unassuming guards and just rush in with little to no resistance before, picking this lock results in an interaction I've never actually seen before at a game. Someone actually opened the
Wow.
door while I was picking the lock. You and Woods kick ass moving through the base, but then, see, you end up in like an arcade.
It's a fucking mannequin.
Not a fucking word, Bill.
And this is where things get a little weird. See, the Russians have this insane technology, right? Like in the 80s, to make this gigantic fortress that has a super accurate reconstruction of what an American town or city looks like. Yet they don't have like
That's
basic
fucking
VR
huge.
systems to just train soldiers instead. Not sure what
This is during the Cold War. What are you talking about?
fortress that has a super accurate reconstruction of what an American town or city looks like. Yet they don't have like basic VR systems to just train soldiers instead.
fuck?
Not sure what the deal is here or how effective this would actually be in practice, but regardless, you mow through more enemies, find this tanky dude, and ultimately stumble upon evidence of something called Project Greenlight. Finding out that
Okay.
Hudson, yes, that Hudson, knew about it. Huh? Oh, and just
He
then,
knew
the
about
alarms
it the
went
whole
off. Not
fucking
sure why I clicked on
time?
this song,
Okay.
to be honest. You
The
fight your
fuck?
way out, and then later that night, back at home base, Woods decides he has something to say to Hudson.
Hold on. Was Hudson really an op the whole time? Was he an op?
You knew the
Oh,
nuke was on
fuck.
green light. Didn't tell us. What else are you hiding? Maybe I can knock the truth out of you.
You might want to rethink that, Woods.
All right, so what is
Dang.
Project Greenlight? Well, basically back in 1958, the arms race with nukes was kind of a big deal, and America's President Dwight D. Eisenhower at the time decided, hey, if Russia went and invaded Europe and tried to take over a bunch of other countries to gain more power, what if, before that happened, we put nukes in every major European country so that if we needed to, we could activate them and basically destroy the rest of the world? Oh yeah, and in 74, the nukes were upgraded to high-yield neutron bombs, which according to what I googled, it's probably going to put me on a watch list. High-yield neutron bombs aren't even a thing, so yeah, these are pretty beefy. Basically, a big old
Okay.
problem here lies in that one of these Project Greenlight nukes is missing. Average America moment, losing track of their own nuke's whereabouts, and that takes us
How in
to...
the fuck? How do you lose a whole ass nuke? Like, I understand, like, there's still landmines and shit from like past wars, like back in like World War One and Two and stuff like that. Because like they're landmines. No one's gonna keep track of where the fucking landmines are after the war, or they should. And but like at that time, who's all gonna keep track of where the landmines are? They know like the general area where like the landmines are planted, but not like the exact location. So like that's understandable, but like missing a whole ass nuke, the fuck?
In an attempt to figure out what to do next, Park suggests looking into an active excavation operation in the Ural Mountains, Yamatown, this snowy facility that Hudson and
Yamatown.
Weaver had actually cleared out back in Black Ops 1. Adler
Okay.
sends Mason and Woods in, calling in assistance from a KGB insider named Belikov. After Belikov drops you two off, just make sure you don't aim down sights while you're looking over at the mountains in the distance because your computer will blue screen. Definitely not me blaming Call of Duty Cold War when in fact my computer is just barely hanging on for life through years of neglect. Anyways, after I
Oh,
reinstalled my
no.
entire operating system, succumbing to Windows 11 at long last, last, I continued the mission, and this is where we get the iconic line,
We do this quiet, Mason.
Yeah.
We do
you're
this
the
quiet.
expert in quiet.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason.
just then, this happens.
I'm a goddamn onion mason.
But it's not quite Mason's time to die just yet, because he catches himself, and you and Woods clear out the rest of the facility. Before, with the help of Belkov, attaching your helicopter to this cargo and getting the hell out of there in an admittedly very fun vertical escape. 4 days later, we find out that the cargo was some kind of mainframe containing intel about the names of sleeper agents that Perseus wanted. But after analyzing the data, it turns out that Perseus deleted the names already. The only other place they could get that list is in KGB headquarters. The game asks the rather obvious question, why didn't Perseus just get the names from the KGB in the first place? With the answer being that it's more than likely that Perseus isn't exactly working with authorization from the KGB. Before the next mission begins, the game attempts to tease you with something sussy going on behind the scenes as to Bell, your character's identity. Adler is planning to take you into the KGB headquarters for the next mission, but Hudson's being a little whiny about it. Next mission sees you in the perspective of Belikov in the KGB headquarters already, as he's exchanging Discord DMs with his kitten. Wait, wrong video. As he's exchanging intel with Adler over the phone. Then you head over to a meeting with some classic Russian bad guys, including freaking Kravchenko here yet again. Bro got upgraded to
Kravchenko.
This part of the game is pretty neat. It has you basically choosing different options.
He's in
to
like,
cut camera feeds and get
okay.
information, so you can ultimately retrieve a key card for clearance into the lower floor, where you'll be able to let Adler and Bell in. And once Belikov does so, you resume control of Bell once again, surprising some guards and stealing their uniforms. Then you sneak in, barely passing through security, and you get this encounter with one of the higher-ups that's especially suspicious of you.
No, Yalitza. Когда вы прибыли?
I just happen to guess the right answer, but if you don't, you get into a bit of a brawl with the guy. Moving forward, you get into this bunker,
Good
get
job,
some
good
data,
job.
and you get out cleanly with Belikov. Okay, maybe it wasn't that clean, but hey, no harm done. Unless you count the hundreds of Russians slaughtered, but hey, this is
No harm, no
the next
foul.
lead in this Cold War
Russians
style
don't count.
takes you and the team to
They are
decide
not
on
real
the final
humans.
mission. One of the sleeper agents they found on the list is an American named Theodore Hastings, a nuclear engineer. They have reason to believe that Hastings will be in Cuba in a hotspot for Perseus's activity. You and the team choose a smash and grab style where they parachute in to go grab the nuke, then get the hell out. But after you arrive, kill a bunch of dudes, see this camera feed of what appears to be Perseus killing the scientists, and you realize it's a little too late. The nuke had been conveniently decoded with the help of these Nazi scientists, and so Perseus has the ability to detonate all the nukes in Project Greenlight if he so chooses to. Of course, this would then be blamed on the US if it happened, which is what the US is really concerned about here. You guys had to escape, but then you get RPG'd and you have to choose between saving Lazar or saving Park. The canon event is saving Park, but regardless, whichever you don't save gets captured by the enemy. At this point, once you make it back to HQ, we finally learn the truth behind Bell. Remember when that one terrorist killed his own men? Well, you just happened to be one of the people shot by him. You didn't exactly die, and Adler and the others grabbed you and took you alive to be questioned. Interrogation wasn't working, so they brainwashed you to believe that you had just been another CIA agent or other.
No way! No way! That's crazy.
A close ally of Perseus, and Adler and the gang held out hope that they could eventually unearth information about Perseus through you. So, with you being the last resort, they give you a bunch of drugs and you play through a bunch of increasingly trippy Vietnam simulations before ultimately learning the truth. You're then presented with two options: tell Adler where Perseus is, or lie to him. If you lie to him, basically the team gets slaughtered and you're still buddies with Perseus. If you tell the truth, which is that Perseus is in Solovetsky, this party little place in Russia, the canon ending happens where you and the gang head out to stop the nuke from activating with yet again another broadcast.
Okay, I will say I do like how there's options in this campaign so far, in the Cold War story. I think that's pretty dope.
This is sounding a little familiar. After making it to Solovetsky, you destroyed the transmission arrays, saving the day. But Perseus is still out there, because they have 6 seasons of multiplayer to support. The game pulls Bell out of the rubble, and the last cutscene in Cold War shows Adler taking you out to smell the Arctic air before... okay.
Oh no.
She wrote for Black Ops Cold War, but there happened to be these 6 multiplayer seasons that covered a whole bunch more events. So without further ado, let's go over how Call of Duty really wants you to believe that
Adler is
But basically,
interesting.
Black Ops Cold War added some cutscenes with the multiplayer and season-based systems that they end up giving us some backstory, mostly for Adler, and it takes place kind of all over the timeline, so buckle up. Remember back in Black Ops 1 when you head to Rebirth Island and Mason goes ham on Steiner? Well, Call of Duty decided that Adler was also there, and he ended up interrogating this guy named Stitch that was responsible for the production of Nova 6 gas. Adler was pretty mad about Weaver and how he got his eye taken out, so he decided, hey, I'm gonna create a supervillain here and take this guy's eye as revenge, since Stitch was a lackey of Kravchenko, the same dude who had taken Weaver's eye. From there, Kravchenko sent Stitch to the Gulag. Not really sure how, since did the Americans just leave Stitch on Rebirth Island for the Russians to rescue? It doesn't really explain this, but fast forward all the way to
It had been common sense to capture him, but
the
okay.
majority of the Cold War story, and Stitch, now a wacky supervillain.
You see, Adler did it on purpose, completely on purpose, so then this in turn can give him more work. Okay, he purposely did it to come back and take his other eye. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to leave him completely blind, completely.
Raids a CIA base and kills a bunch of people, leaving a message which Adler ultimately finds. Adler then gives chase to what is essentially set up by Stitch in some random mall in New Jersey. They capture Adler, kill his team, and then take him to Laos, where a new team, including Woods, comes to rescue him, but it's too late. He's already been moved to a place called Verdansk. Around this time, Stitch sends some of his buddies to Yamantau to grab some info about the numbers program, despite the fact that this data shouldn't even be here unless it was later repurposed by the Russians? This is getting really convoluted with Yamantau. Not long after, Woods and the gang rescue Adler in Verdansk, but oh no, Stitch is back at it again with his evil plans because his operatives
back at it again with the white bands,
center, causing 2 satellites to crash, one in Verdansk and one in Algeria, North Africa. Adler, now of course rescued, just happened to be in Algeria to come and grab the data off of one of these satellites, telling the rest of his team that said data was destroyed. Looks like Stitch brainwashed him big time. And speaking of brainwashing, around a month later, Woods and another team head to Germany to
who got brainwashed?
Adler, now of course rescued, just happened to be in Algeria to come and grab the data off of one of these satellites, telling the rest of his team that said data was destroyed. Looks like Stitch brainwashed him big time. And speaking of brainwashing, around a month later,
he brainwashed
Adler,
Adler,
head to Germany to capture one of Stitch's operatives. But then she activates some numbers broadcast, and it turns out that most of Woods' team was comprised of sleeper agents, so him and one of the affected members just barely make it out alive. A bit later, Woods and Hudson conclude that Adler is most likely a mole and that he's compromised. So they bring him in and give him the whole numbers treatment, even letting
the numbers, Mason.
Honors. This feels kind of wrong. Like, what the fuck? Numbers treatment. Even letting Mason himself do the honors.
Let's go.
Like, what the fuck? Once they break Adler's brainwashing, they find out that he'd been planting a bunch of bombs under Verdansk, which, mind you, seemed to be an actual populated city. And his reason for doing it, according to him, was that
I wasn't in my right mind.
So essentially, Adler became like a bad guy for a little bit. I don't really know his goals at that point. It doesn't really seem to
he was
brainwashed. I don't really
brainwashed.
know if Stitch intentionally made Adler like a freaking terrorist or not, because he was actually trying to defuse the bombs that Adler had planted. But while he was trying to do that, someone blew up, and that's when all the destruction happened. Anyway, Adler is fine now, though, of course, and despite the fact that he just blew up an entire city, it's the CIA, so it's fine. Adler and the others find where Stitch is, and we get this cutscene.
You took your time. It's over. Your sick experiment is done. Where the fuck is Perseus? Right here. Cancer took him in '83.
Damn.
There's blood on your hands. Big words from the scourge of Verdansk. Fuck you.
While that's basically it for the story of Cold War, I think overall my reaction to it is this. While the chronology of events leading up to
Perseus
now
has been
rather
dead
well
this whole
written in
time.
many aspects, taking such a massive leap from COD World at War and Black Ops 1 to Cold War, the 5th entry in the Black Ops series, is jarring because you're jumping between massive points in time that the companies responsible for these IPs have existed. Black Ops 1 was considered around the golden age of COD, and for good reason. Warzone didn't exist yet, so it wasn't a completely soulless IP with a quickly deteriorating identity. But because Cold War's story takes place not long after the events of Black Ops 1, it shoehorns itself in as much as it shoehorns in its returning cast of characters for nostalgia bait. But before we can really get a verdict on whether or not Black Ops 6 accomplishes something similar, we need to examine what happens in between. And for once, this is one of the Call of Duty villains that I actually think is pretty interesting. And I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment. Allow me to introduce
Black Ops 2. Am I right?
Let's
Black Ops 2,
rewind
right?
just a little bit. A boy named Raul Menendez was born in 1963 in Nicaragua, which, if you're as geographically brain dead as I am, is a place in Central America right
No, it's not
here.
Black Ops
He
2,
grew up
duh.
in pretty bad times due to political opposition
Maybe?
and a revolution that stretched on through much of his childhood, and in 1972, a huge earthquake destroyed most of what Raul and his family had. A year later, him and his sister were
Okay.
taking shelter in a warehouse when it was lit on fire by the owner itself. His sister was severely burned, and when Raul found her in that state, thinking she was dead, he tried to join her by using a very sharp pendant she had, but it turned out she was alive, and she was like, nah, don't do that, bro. They both made it out alive, and Raul found out that the guy that owned the warehouse was an American who burned it down so he could collect $11,000 worth of insurance fraud money.
That's
from Raul's
crazy.
perspective, he basically saw all Americans as the most evil creatures on the planet. Once Raul became a teenager, he went on to start selling drugs with his father, and they kind of started a gigantic Menendez cartel empire, becoming rich and
Yeah?
powerful in the criminal underworld. His father taught him well in the art of survival and escaping potential capture by, for example, the CIA. With Menendez's history established, we can now catch back up to 1986, about 2 years after Adler executed Stitch. Menendez was a gun runner and helping supply weapons to countries that were actively fighting against the US and NATO. While our boy Woods was out in Angola trying to fight against the Soviet-backed MPLA, he was captured by Menendez. This prompted the CIA
Oh,
to send
no.
Hudson out to Mason, who was then taking care of his 7-year-old son David, enjoying his life in Alaska.
Yeah, I
Hudson
think
was
this
like,
is
"Yo,
Black
so,
Ops 2, right?
Woods got captured, and Mason was like, okay.
So are you gonna like go save it?
Yeah, okay, fine.
Dad, do you love Uncle Frank more than me?
So anyway, Black Ops 2. You're playing as Alex Mason once again. It's July 2nd, 1986, and you've just abandoned your son to go save your best boy Woods from his capture by Menendez in Angola. Ultimately,
Yeah.
find him in this shipping container on a barge, somehow still alive. You know, maybe when he said
I'm a goddamn onion.
he was really implying that he has multiple layers of plot armor.
Damn,
kinda like
yeah.
that cat has 9 lives. Oh, poor Woods. Bro's looking like a Call of Duty player at 3 a.m.
Come down now and feed the dog.
After saving Woods, Mason finds Menendez just chilling
What
with
the
his
fuck?
radio and shoots him in the face. God damn, Black Ops 2 cutscenes were intense.
Yes,
what
they
the
were.
hell happened to this franchise? Is this just my bitter nostalgia, or were these cutscenes genuinely so much better than modern day COD cutscenes?
No,
do me
they
a favor
got
and tell me in the
soft.
comments
They
what
got
you think.
soft.
Anyway, you extract Woods, and as it turns out, around this time too, Menendez's dad was killed by the CIA, adding to the very long list at this point for Menendez to despise the US. He would go on to run guns in Afghanistan for his own private army, and that's when a
Okay.
few months after Woods' recovery, he was sent into Afghanistan with Mason to look for Menendez. They were working with this guy named Zhao, and they team up with the Mujahideen, which were allegedly going to help Woods and Mason find him. They get to the Mujahideen
Okay.
base, which
Are they
Marson's
gonna turn
already
on
at,
him,
and then they go over
assuming?
a plan to defend the base
Maybe?
from the Russians, after which the Mujahideen are to give out information regarding Menendez. One big ol' horse riding defense later, and yo, guess who they find? Kravchenko. Mason starts seeing the
Kravchenko,
numbers
he's
for
back!
Reznov, but ultimately he resists with the power of the X button, and they interrogate him while Woods threatens to pull a Stitch 2.0 because I guess Weaver's expression is 2 eyes for an eye. I love how they shoehorned in Adler and Stitch, pretty much ruining the originality of this moment. Anyway, after Kravchenko gives them the information they need, which is that Menendez is in Nicaragua, Woods quickly takes him out, but then the Mujahideen betray the gang and leave them for dead. Mason sees Reznov come to rescue him,
Yep,
but
I knew it.
obviously you know the drill by now. Anyway, the gang is saved miraculously, and we fast forward to some arbitrary amount of time later that year, still in 1986, when the president of Panama, Manuel Noriega, offered the CIA the location of Menendez for a lovely check of $1 million. If you're up for a short geography lesson, this is where Panama is, and this is where Nicaragua is, relative to
Okay.
Capiche? So you guys make it to the outskirts of Menendez's Nicaragua compound, and that's when we actually get the perspective of Menendez himself. See, bro really loves his sister, Josefina. She's the only person he really cares for. He'd do anything for her, which is why when someone knocks on the door and gets their brains blown out before some Panama soldiers storm the room and bash Josefina's head on a dresser, Menendez goes Doomslayer mode before getting sedated. He wakes up in front of Noriega, who, for whatever reason, executes his own men and lets Menendez go. But obviously, this dude is a fucking moron because Menendez is literally in kill mode right now, so he tries to do just that before hearing his sister screaming. While you play as Menendez, the screen is super red and you're basically in a rage mode as you witness the
Yeah,
alien
obviously.
soldiers massacring civilians while fighting your way to your sister. And suddenly, with everything that Menendez had done to Woods back in Angola, this prompted him to lose his crap and throw a grenade, which ultimately killed Josefina. Mason and Woods come to, seeing a body bag.
Can I just say, though, in a way, Menendez is somewhat or mostly justified with the stuff he's doing. Yet, yes, he shouldn't have become a terrorist, blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever. however you want to say it, whatever, right? But I think he's been somewhat justified for it just because of the abuse and all the things that has happened to him. And I mean, I don't know. I think I'd kind of be in a similar state, somewhat, if all that's happened to me and it's just been the cause of the United States. You know what I mean? Or they have something to do with it. So if I was him, I'd hate the U.S. too. I guess.
Bag getting taken away, and Hudson tells them it's Menendez in it. But considering Menendez is in the future, well, obviously that wasn't him. It was probably his sister. Things are quiet for about 3 years until the CIA finds out that Menendez is still alive, and he's with Noriega in Panama. George H.W. Bush sends the CIA out to do a grab and smear operation to destroy Noriega's reputation, and then head in to grab Menendez with Navy SEALs. A snatch and grab. Clean, right? They head in, secure Noriega, but then Hudson starts giving some weird, contradictory orders, saying to just escort him to a new location. Mason and Woods are not okay with this, but they do it anyway, and they split up. Then Hudson tells Woods over the radio that some Nexus target is the code name for Raul Menendez, and they have him arriving right out in front of a sniper's position. Hudson tells Woods to take the shot, but something isn't right.
That has to be somebody.
No!
He
What are you
killed.
looking so smug about?
I don't. That's gonna be like a U.S. agent, isn't it? Or Hudson. That's gonna be either Hudson, Woods. Who is it gonna be?
Mason!
Mason.
You bastard! Menendez!
Menendez takes Woods,
Damn, that's
Hudson, and Mason's
tragic.
son David to an abandoned room as he kills Hudson to send a message to Woods for him to be consumed by absolute loss. So with Menendez's origin story established and the most heartbreaking Call of Duty character moment created, that takes us to what you've all probably been waiting for, the game that happens directly after these events in the 90s. No, not Black Ops
Black
3,
3,
4,
Black
or 5,
6.
Call of Duty.
Black Ops 6, one of the worst
Black Ops 6 begins
Call of
2
Duties.
years after Hudson was killed by Menendez, Mason was shot dead, and Woods had his kneecaps blown off. And yes, it
Okay,
looks
so
like
Mason
being
is
shot
dead.
is confirmed by Black Ops 6, unless I misinterpreted something. The year is 1991. Guess who the CIA blamed for the disaster in Panama? None other than Russell Adler. But see, Adler was framed, leading up to the events of what happened in 86 to our favorite two best friends. Adler was going
Okay.
after a paramilitary group called Pantheon. What the hell does paramilitary mean? Well, basically, it's a secret, often very illegal organization or army within a military or branch
Excuse
of
me.
government, I guess. In this case, the CIA. Adler just loves investigating gigantic evil organizations, starting with the letter P. Anyway, this Pantheon group, according to what Adler had found at that point, was allegedly operating from within the CIA, and at some point they found out that Adler was looking into them, so to frame him for what went down in Panama would be a great way to get rid of him. After Adler
Yeah,
was framed,
true.
he went into hiding for a year or two, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. He took shelter in this cabin that was way off the grid in Europe. It
Hey,
just
that
happened to be
cabin
an
was one of my
abandoned KGB outpost by a
favorite
team working under
maps
Dragovich
in Black
World
Ops
War I.
6.
Said outpost is known
One of the
as
few
the
decent
Rook, and that
maps.
takes us forward to 91 during Operation Desert Storm. We get
All
an
right.
opening wide shot introducing two new CIA operatives, Troy Marshall and Jane Harrow. These two were sent to retrieve a guy named Alawi in Iraq who was a minister of defense, someone close to Saddam Hussein. You play as another operative, one known only as Case. Just like Bell in Cold War, you have a rather mysterious past, which we're going to unearth over the course of this chapter. You
So
guys
is he going to
capture
be
Alawi, but
another
then while trying to get him out of the area,
brainwash
Adler shows up out of
coming to the
nowhere
US
in a
and
Jeep
shit?
and kills the guy. Your team grabs him and asks what the fuck he's doing when he's like, "You guys can calm down. They framed me."
You can ease up, son. I'm all done here. Jane,
You just killed a high-value target in cold blood and put our national security at risk.
Alawi can't fall into the Pantheon's hands. Or Langley's. The CIA is compromised. But it's not me. I'm just the fall guy. I got a message for Woods.
Oh, yeah?
Tell him Bishop takes Rook. The hell's that supposed to mean?
See, all this time, Woods had been biding his own
Okay.
time. Of course, with his kneecaps having been deleted, he's been wheelchair-bound for the past 2 years, and as we
Yes.
established in Cold War, him and Mason were good friends with Adler. Woods was never going to just believe Adler would sell them out for, what, money? Adler was one of his closest homies. Also, what Adler said about Bishop taking Rook, essentially that's his way of getting a secret message to Woods to check
Yes.
the Rook cabin safe house, because he had known about it before all this went down.
Okay,
Nonetheless,
yeah,
after
that makes
Marshall
sense.
and Harrow got back to the CIA headquarters, they and Woods are called in for interrogation, considering their team failed to actually get Alawi out. This guy, Livingstone, one of their higher-ups, chews him out and clearly believes Adler is the enemy and was definitely the mole. When he tells the gang to leave after suspending their operations, we get a brief glimpse at this guy. Who is he? It's called Play the fucking multiplayer, you peasant, which is what Call of Duty would love to say to
I'm
you because, oh boy,
assuming
he's most
that's the bad
definitely
guy.
going to be involved in some upcoming multiplayer cutscenes. We'll get into how he factors into all this at the end of the game. Anyway, the gang decides they want to keep looking into this sussy situation. Marshall and Woods head to the
Yes.
Rook, Adler's old hideout in Bulgaria, and they make sure it's clear, bring a case along the way. They also want to recruit this woman named Savati Dama to help them out, since she was a previous freelance assassin who'd worked for Adler when he was investigating Pantheon earlier. So in exchange for helping her take down some people who wronged her in her past, she makes a deal to help you guys out on your Pantheon mission afterwards.
Okay,
you do
decent.
just that, arriving in a city called Avalon, which is a fictional city on the Mediterranean coast. Assassinating target after target, eventually you satisfy her wishes and she joins the team. While you'd been doing that, Marshall was recruiting this German dude named Felix Newman, this epic hacker with a
Felix!
sense of humor. But before we move
Can we
on to
just
what
say
the team-
something? What I think's funny is I tried to do a series of this game for the campaign, and I couldn't get into it after the first episode. I was like, "Fuck it, let's put it up. If it really gets the views, I will do it." But like, I did not like it at all. I could not get into it. I'm sorry.
actually does next, I want to briefly talk about a character that Black Ops 6 simply does not do well, and that is Frank Woods. Throughout most of the game, he's hanging out in the base, occasionally helping with comms throughout missions, acting as a kind of narrator, honestly, throughout a lot of it. But the issue I have with Woods isn't what he does do, it's what he doesn't do. While Woods doesn't necessarily have a reason to mention having mistakenly killed his best friend to you, Case, some random bozo, they really should have done this character more justice by actually showing his trauma. Sure, it's been 2 years
Yes,
since
that
the
would
incident, but
be
the problem
nice.
is that the old Woods we see in Black Ops 2 is not particularly well adjusted to his past. He has horrible regrets about it as an old man, and you can see that in James C. Burns' performance. Problem is, in Black Ops 5 and 6, both Mason and Woods were recast for seemingly no good reason. And so not only do we have inauthentic actors to play these beloved characters, the writing, which Burns had allegedly been largely responsible for with Woods in Black Ops 1 and 2, is also inauthentic. Black Ops 6 has some gems
Yeah.
here and there when it comes to the writing for certain characters, but the fact that they screwed Woods up this bad is just really sucky. He's such a bore.
They should have at least like had him a little skitterish and like hesitant on a lot of the things, or kind of cold or whatnot. Just to add some character of after him killing Mason or something like that. But yeah,
Boring character in the 6th entry, and sure, we get moments that try and communicate what it might be like to be wheelchair bound.
Fuck me!
Yo, ask for help, man.
Fuck you too!
Come on, have fun.
fucking hilarious.
Does it look like I'm having fun?
No,
Yes, you look like you're having a lot of fun.
that's not what I meant. You got dealt a bad hand.
You're gonna get dealt bad hands, kid. With us, the stakes are high.
These are surface level, and again, Woods as a character should be a much more volatile person instead
Yeah.
of the well-adjusted, badass veteran that they try and show him as in 6. But regardless, let's get back to the main plot. So with the team assembled, Felix does his PowerPoint
He's like an
presentation
onion!
on how he's learned the location of where they're keeping Adler. Despite the fact that
He has
they were
layers.
responsible for Adler getting captured just a few days prior, they needed to get him back because obviously they think he's innocent, at least to a degree. So they comprise a plan to break Adler out of the CIA black site underneath Capitol Station in Washington, D.C. By sneaking into Capitol Station during a political fundraiser event, they figured that's their best shot at getting Adler out. It's showtime.
Hold on, if Adler got brainwashed, could it just be he's still brainwashed and is still doing everything and doesn't remember doing it because he's he was brainwashed or like in a trance? Could that be why everything was going on and he's actually the traitor?
And you, Case, head on in. Long story short, you can choose a couple ways of ultimately getting a retinal scan of Senator Jack McKenna, who just happens to have security clearance to the black site under the building. I chose the way where you help his wife get evidence of people who are trying to blackmail him with some naughty videos of his, and easy peasy. Once you get the scan, you head into the black site, retrieve Adler, and get out, culminating in this bike chase finale. Once you get Adler back safe and sound of the Rook, he explains that the team's next bet for making progress in the Pantheon investigation is going to an Iraqi palace that Saddam Hussein gave Pantheon clearance to store an experimental weapon known as the Cradle inside. So they head to western Iraq, and fast, because the British forces in the area were about to bomb said palace. While they're there, they actually team up with Howland Park, yes, that park, to convince the British to hold off for a little bit while you drive around in the open world desert with the gang in COD's latest attempt to shoehorn Warzone-like open worlds into their campaign. After you clear out some Scud missile launchers,
Dude, I
for the
hate
British,
that they do
you
that.
head to the palace, get inside, and you find a bioweapon. This is the Cradle. According to intel they found on site, a Soviet weapons scientist leading the project named Matvey Gusev was involved in this Cradle project, and it all happened in an American research facility in Kentucky. Your little investigation is cut short though, since Iraqi forces have just arrived. You make an escape, and once you get home, Felix is set on the task of decoding the disc found back in that palace bunker. It's here where I realized just how much Black Ops 6 actually has some pretty great character moments. I really suggest asking Felix what he thinks is on the disc.
Considering where you found it, the logical assumption is that it holds data pertaining to a weaponized biological agent. Or pornography.
You and the gang team up to a facility called Advanced Technologies and Applications located in
Or pornography.
It's marked as Cosper Solutions on the surface, but secretly there's some secret Cradle research. You, Marshall, and Sev embark on your mission, then you fall down an elevator shaft and you get your helmet cracked open. Breathing in this toxic gas, you start to hallucinate. This is where I can envision the meeting Activision Blizzard had where investors asked, alright, so Nazi Zombies makes us money. How can we remind people that Nazi Zombies exists? By shoehorning into the campaign later.
Obviously.
It turns out Case was actually a test subject here forever ago, but beyond the fact that the Cradle gas they tested on him and others with was used to create super soldiers, they don't really elaborate on it moving forward, and you wake up as Marshall and Sav are like, hey buddy, wake up. So basically they head back to the Rook, Felix cracks the disc at long last, and they find out this huge reveal. As it turns out, Harrow was working with Pantheon this whole time. Marshall is angry about this because
It wasn't porn! What are you talking about? That would have been so much better. I'm kidding. Kidding. At least it wasn't like a homemade porn video of Makarov or something.
As it turns out, Harrow was working with Pantheon this whole time. Marshall is angry about this because him and Harrow were like a thing back in the day. One melodramatic moment later, and the team decides to sneak into a casino and pull off a big ol' heist over in Avalon. The reason Avalon's kind of a big deal is because there's a bunch of crime organizations there, so I guess it just happens to link up to Pantheon. You steal the stuff, fight your way out, and find that Matvey Gusev, the Russian scientist behind the Cradle, is in southern Iraq. Adler heads there and gets some help from Captain Lawrence Sims, someone Adler had known for many years and who was actually in your team back in Black Ops Cold War. After fighting through an
Hey! Throwback! What?
airport, you guys find Gusev and try and get some info. You know, this is giving me flashbacks to Cold War. Our guide tells us that Vorkuta, yes, that Vorkuta, is where Pantheon decided to upscale production on the Cradle. So they head there, find out Harrow is there, and they were a little too late. The Cradle stuff that was there was already shipped out. So they try and grab her, and then you get this rather confusing cutscene where she just kind of sits down and has a little chat with Case while in the middle of an escape. Really smart plan there, Jane. So you capture her, and Adler gets up to his old torture methods again by drugging the shit out of Harrow. Then we get this overly drawn-out, hallucinogenic zombies nightmare cutscene that explains her backstory and how her parents were killed by the CIA when she was a little girl. She then grew up wanting to work for the CIA, and once she did and started to find out info about her parents, she found that their files were basically wiped out. Then, with Pantheon having
That's
already been
crazy.
established around that time, Hera was slipped a tape under her office door that revealed to her some information, probably largely fabricated, which was that Adler somehow was the person who had killed her parents, and the CIA covered it up. This set her on her path to not only joining, but becoming a higher-up of Pantheon, presumably some kind of leader, and that's why, as they're getting this info out of her with her LSD trip, the f***ing cavalry arrives. Pantheon and their waves of soldiers come to attack the Rook, because Hera just happened to have a tracker implanted inside of her that the gang found only after they'd already taken her to the Rook. While the team tries their best to hold off
You
the
wouldn't
enemy,
try to
eventually
find a
send
tracker.
enemy
Make sure
police
there's
into
not
the
a
base,
tracker on
throwing
her
open
before
the
you
doors to
take
the
her.
safe room.
Right.
Wheelchair just shotguns the shit out of them and eventually gets overtaken. This guy just tackled a disabled man. Okay. And then you know, even though in all these LSD flashbacks they're trying to humanize Jane Harrow, she ultimately is just evil again, and then she just fucking shanks Wood in the stomach, or like
Why
did
Woods?
she do this? Why did she just kill him? What? That's just fucking mean, bro. He's disabled. What? He's a fucking disabled onion, man. So after
A
that
fucking
shit,
onion!
He tries to escape, but that's when Case is like, and
Light armor.
the causing the helicopter to crash and both of them getting stuck underwater. Then he chokes her out and she's all like, bro, wait, hold on. This isn't very
I'm still a
stupid."
good guy.
And that's it. Case kills Harrow. Maybe
Oh, okay, never mind.
Case is alive. Maybe dead.
Who
I
knows?
don't know. There isn't any confirmation yet. But 2 weeks later, Woods, Adler, and Marshall go to chat with Livingstone out in the middle of nowhere to give him a piece of their minds after having just massively saved his ass. See, Harrow's incredibly cheesy and dumb plan was that they'd use the Cradle bioweapon, which they stored inside of Washington, D.C., to cause thousands to die and promptly have the CIA basically fall apart because they'd blame it on Livingstone, the current leader. At which point, Harrow would come in and take over. Anyway, Livingstone
Okay.
tells the boys that he wants them to work with him again, but this time totally off the books.
Fuck no.
He promises to give them whatever they need, guns, manpower, cash, whatever. His condition is that they find Pantheon, whatever it takes, saying that they need to head to Avalon to root him out and, find who's really pulling the strings. I mean, who got Harrow into the Pantheon in the first place, right? As it turns out, the real leader, or big bad guy seemingly, is this dude we see in 2 cutscenes. Most likely, it's Jackson Kane, an operator of the Crimson One faction in Black
Okay.
Ops 6 multiplayer. Gotta love shoehorning in a bad guy who's literally just a random dude in the multiplayer. Not even kidding, like 90% of the comments in these like ending videos are just people thinking it's Alex Mason too. But if it's not Jackson Kane, it could potentially be Bell from Cold War. Honestly, I'm not even going to begin to theorize, but it's most likely going to be explained in these season passes or whatever. So you future players will probably know. Regardless,
Oh, this is probably
has
up
a
to
pretty
6
lame
too,
ending.
I think.
No doubt they'll force people to play the multiplayer to experience the cutscenes that tell the rest of the
Is
story,
this-
which, just like Cold War, is probably not even going to get resolved, considering the franchise can then just pull it out of their bag when they need a new plot line in Call of Duty Black Ops 7. But maybe I'm just
Okay, this is
exaggerating.
before
Is it really
7.
that bad? What do you think? While the writing of Black Ops 6 wasn't perfect, at least there was some effort there, which can't be said for most of the futuristic Black Ops games. Which leads us to... In this chapter, I'm going to take some inspiration from Highboy and just try and get through all of this futuristic post-2025 COD stuff as fast as I possibly can before I... Then we'll do a retrospective on the franchise overall. We start with Black Ops 2, which is actually pretty bearable. Woods decides to adopt David, considering his mom had already been dead and Woods had killed Mason not long before then either. He raised David himself, who eventually would go on to join the Elite SEAL Team 6, ascending to Lieutenant Commander. This grown-ass David also had a good buddy, Mike Harper, on his team. We're in 2025 now, which is obviously a little bit more advanced than we are now in basically
Just a tad,
2025.
just a
See, by now,
tad.
Woods was in a...
We got AI, we got AI.
Much older Menendez came to visit him one
Listen here. Why do we need all that tech? We got AI porn. I'm kidding. Kidding.
day, giving Woods his sister's pendant and telling him, now it begins. Basically, Raul Menendez created a social media movement called Cordis Dia, in addition to some cyber attack that messed with the stock market between China and the rest of the world. David and Harper go to have a chat with Woods, and Woods asks him to kill Menendez after telling him all of his war stories. Anyway, the gang go around the world doing some missions and trying to investigate Menendez. Eventually, David's good friend Harper gets shot, or he doesn't.
no.
I honestly don't even know which one is considered canon at this point. Good guys capture Menendez. They put him on the Obama ship. He gets rescued by this absolute rat, hacks some American drones, and escapes. Eventually, you track him down, and there's like a bunch of endings with variations of different stuff you could do, but at the end of the day, this is the only one that matters.
We talked about this already, right?
Gotta let that Cordis Diaz shit go, man.
Now we get to Black Ops 4. That's right, I said 4. Why not 3?
Black
Well,
Ops
because 3 takes
3,
place in
yeah.
2065 and 4 takes place in the 2040s. So, Alex Mason and Frank Woods have been reduced to simulated nostalgia bait characters. Wait, actually, they're not even characters at this point. The Mason family unfortunately lives on, though, because David Mason had 2 daughters, Jessica and Savannah. Jessica became a cybernetic specialist of some kind in the army, and Savannah just became a generic supervillain. Okay, what do they do with these characters? You'll never know because there's no story in this game, just a bunch of CGI that amounts to basically nothing of substance. And speaking of a lack of substance,
Train
that
go
takes us to
boom.
the end of the Black Ops timeline so far. Call of Duty Black Ops 3. But okay, I want to first clarify that while this game's story is pretty badly written at face value, I think it does have layers. No, not like you would. It does have depth, and I think the creators behind it really did try to make something interesting. Hell, no matter what you think about Black Ops 3, the art team at least did a fantastic job. So just know that while I'm overly simplifying its story here, I don't want to give it no credit at all. They did sort of try here, at least more than Black Ops 4, obviously. Basically, the story of the third game has you playing as the player, and you're buddies with a guy named Hendrix and another guy named Taylor. See, by now in 2065, they got full-on robotic soldiers tearing through people. Some people have cybernetic limbs, either...
Okay, so why are they using cybernetic soldiers or not robot soldiers when these guys are just using humans? Like, why don't you use the cyber soldiers instead to fight the cyber soldiers, and then they can have those guys just on the DL. You know what I mean.
making the decision to remove their limbs in exchange for the upgrade or getting them after being injured. The latter happens to you. Not gonna lie, World at War is brutal, but I think Black Ops 3 might actually take the cake for being the most gory Black Ops game in the franchise. I don't even know how much of it I can show at this point. Anyway, you get some new robotic limbs as well as a cybernetic brain interface called a DNI. Hendrix then decides, I'm gonna get my limbs replaced too, just so we can be cybernetic buddies. And so you and him proceed to go on countless missions, one of which being where you're fighting against a group called the 54 Immortals. You find all these people that were brutally murdered, and as it turns out, this was done by Taylor and his group of characters that the game barely introduces you to. You then investigate an abandoned facility that Taylor was last seen at. You find some creepy stuff, go on a bunch of wild goose chases, trying to find what the hell Taylor and his rogue team are doing, and you find out they're being controlled by AI because their DNIs are corrupted, and you kill a bunch of them before Taylor is the last one, and then he does this.
It must grow. It wants everybody.
You can fight it, Taylor. You can fight it.
Must get it out.
He's paralyzed now. I'm pretty sure that is that like connected to like his spine.
It's okay. It's okay. You did it. It's gone. We're safe.
Boom! Imagine.
Still here. You. Hendrix.
The AI's in Hendrix!
Hendrix, what the fuck?
So then Hendrix becomes bad, and you track him down?
Not good enough. I'll find out for myself. I'm the only one left.
Then you shoot gun bang on self, and you enter the frozen forest. Not only does train go boom, but also you should imagine yourself in a frozen forest.
Imagine yourself in a frozen forest. A frozen forest. It's real. And it's what comes next. Corvus has given us a way to live on after death.
Oh, and if things couldn't get any more confusing, most of what I just said isn't even true, I'm pretty sure, because this game gaslights you harder than your most psychotic ex.
Wait, so this whole time was it all like
the story of Black Ops 3? I'd recommend checking out Gaming
VR
video on the topic. It's like an hour-long analysis that actually pieces together a really convoluted but actually insanely layered story that at the end of the day kind of goes nowhere, but he certainly does it justice better than I do. By the end, it's basically like the player was actually Taylor the entire time, and dude, I don't know what they were thinking.
What?
Like, do they even know their audience? Like, how were most players of Black Ops 3 going to possibly understand what?
Okay, so like the best explanation for it would have been that it was all like a simulation or something of sorts, And so that's why I don't that you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, a part of the training or something, I don't know. To see what he would do in the situations, to see if he's best suited for missions, and just to see how he's like in missions, I would assume.
Whatever the hell is happening in this game. Regardless, that pretty much sums up the Black Ops series at this point in time, and holy shit, do I need a couple of beers after that, because my god, the leadership is playing Tetris with the canon at this point, fitting in new characters and events left and right, which certainly gives us story explained creators a lot of material to work with, but for the player, I mean, this is just a lot to handle. Imagine this, right? You were an 18-year-old fresh out of high school in
Yeah.
2010 when Black Ops 1 came out. 2 years
2010, I was 5, 6 years old. I was born in November of '04. So I was like 5 years old when it came out.
later, in 2012, Black Ops 2 comes out, a satisfying game to tie up the first one's story, and maybe you're either in the workforce, going to college, or maybe you just joined the military. Fast forward to 2015 with Black Ops 3, and it jumps like 40 years into the game's future. It has no discernible connection to the first game other than gun, go boom, and all the while, maybe at this stage in life, you just had a kid, or you just
Okay,
got a
yeah.
bachelor's degree, or maybe both. Black Ops 4 comes out 3 years later, and it has virtually no story. At this point, you're feeling pretty detached from a franchise you looked so fondly on when you were
Of course,
basically a
yeah.
kid. Then Black Ops 5 Cold War releases, and it adds in Adler, trying to usher in a new generation of American CIA heroes for players to latch onto in the COD franchise. It might not work for older folks like you, but the new blood, oh, they're gonna love it. Will characters like Adler or Troy ever be as iconic as Woods or Mason? Probably not to us, but I guess time will tell. What I'm ultimately trying to get at here is that Call of Duty Black Ops has been dragged through 3 phases. The first 2 games were the golden age, at least to us. The second 2 represented failures, at least in the eyes of a lot of fans. And this new current phase seems to be Activision trying their best to bring back that golden age. And I think it's safe to say they're not quite doing that, but ultimately the interpretation...
No. So, what it needs to be put as, right, is Golden Age, right? Black Ops 1 and 2, you know, let's go back. Okay, right? We got the Golden Age, right? Black Ops 1 and 2, and then the Who Shitted Themselves, which Train Go Boom, Black Ops 4, which I didn't play Black Ops 4, so I don't really know. Same thing with Cold War, but from this video, it seems like the story for Cold War was pretty decent. Um, and then Black Ops 6, I couldn't get into. I would put that in its own section with Black Ops 7 and be like, it's absolute ass. That's what I would say. It would go back into a who shitted themselves section.
golden age. And I think it's safe to say they're not quite doing that, but ultimately the interpretation of these newer games is decided by all of you, the player base, the audience, the market. Black Ops 6 shows they've invested heavily in cutting edge graphics, incredible sound design, and to a degree, fun gameplay. So tell me in the comments below, what do you think about the franchise, this phase that Black Ops is in now, and where do you think it's heading? My favorite part about finishing these videos...
All right, what I think is going to go on in the future is they need to end the Black Ops franchise. They need to end the Modern Warfare franchise with them coming out with Modern Warfare 4 and kind of end those, and maybe just maybe continue, like, make a Ghost 2 or another Advanced or Infinite Warfare and shit like that. You know what I mean? And kind of use those, or make a completely different IP for COD in that state. Like, you can do like a uh just a new name. I'm not good at thinking of game names. Uh or you can move on to like British military or something more modern. I mean, okay, so is Modern Warfare a separate universe than Okay. Let's see. Because I'm not actually sure to be honest. And Grok says, load, please. Dude, you're taking a while, baby girl. What the fuck? Sorry for the load, guys. Fuck. Okay. Yes, the original Modern Warfare universe spanning. So they are in a different universe. So, like, since they're in a separate universe, you can do, like, more modern stuff, can't you? Or no, it was Black Ops that was set in 2025. So, like, I mean, you could probably do more stuff with, to be honest. I don't know. And but I'd rather not, and I'd rather have them start up at something different. You know what I mean? Uh, but with that being said, that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed. The link to the original video will be in the description below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.